Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlie Velasquez from Rugby in Florida. My co-host here, Tom Champa, from a lovely park somewhere in South Florida. Where are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm at a that's at a Starbucks in Boca Raton.
Man, that
But
background is nicer than the one that you have at home. You should always go to the
yeah,
park.
I know normally I work from home, but every once in a while I gotta actually show up and do things. So
Okay, nice to have you again, Tom. And we're gonna rush this one because we have to do this in an hour, so everybody can go and get ready to see the opener of the Six Nations. Are you watching it? Are you
of
watching
course I'm
it,
gonna watch
Tom?
it.
Okay, and who's gonna win?
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it.
Okay,
I
we'll
think
talk
France
about
might
that
take it.
later. So the reason I was doing this one at a weird hour today is one, Cisco owes me an interview which we were gonna do from directly from Perth last weekend. I even have here the to prove it the graphics preparing for this, and he screwed me over, never showed up. And at the same time, I sort of coincided, just remembered this amazing account on Instagram from Alex White about referees, and we had the documentary coming out yesterday, so it all like came together. So let's bring in Cisco Lopez. How are you doing, my man?
Hey, good. How are you? Good to see you again.
305 riff.
Till I
Let's always
die.
remind people
305 till I
about that.
die.
Yeah.
The pride of
And
Miami.
Yes. Yeah. Proud product of Miami, Florida, the Miami-Dade public school system, Florida International University, and above all, the Florida Rugby Referee Association.
okay, everybody's happy now.
I'll get all the shout outs early.
So Cisco, tell us about this tournament. This is remind me this is what more or less numbers. This is like a 10th, 12th. Are you
Well,
keeping count?
I'm not. No, they keep count of our match, of our like the number of matches we've performed. I haven't kept track of how many I've done. I think that might have been close to, if not just over, my 10th tournament, because my first one was in Edmonton back
I
in
remember.
2021, I think it was. And then I've had since then, yeah, like a good handful of tournaments. I had like 4 last year. I'll have 4 of 5 this year. So yeah, kind of getting around the block now. I think that's one of the biggest changes to this year is, just feeling a little bit more part of the competition, the way that I've seen other really big name referees like Bali, like Rasta, like Alhambra, Amy Parrott and stuff like that, and sort of feeling like, oh wow, I'm getting to that place where I've been around and at least I'm familiar. Even just lately being, we all get the cool thing about sevens is we're all in there together. So we're at the facility all day together. We like us and the teams, the refs and the teams, and so starting to now build a couple of better relationships with coaches, with players, even sometimes World Rugby staff who work in either the marketing or the competition perspective. And so it's really cool to have that experience as we obviously are working towards the culmination of the 4 years, which is getting to Paris 2024. So yeah, I don't know what competition number I'm at, but I know I think I'm at 67
Well,
games. So
yeah, I know your dad was counting the games for sure because he
yeah,
posted that shit. And do the players like you by now?
I think that well, specifically me, I think a lot of relationships that I've built with players are pretty positive. Like I think I'm somebody who I'm always willing to say after a match, like, hey, yeah, let me go ahead and review that. And after review, I won't really shy away from saying, hey, like, I got that wrong. And I think that's something that Patty really foregrounds with the way that he talks to the coaches, with the way he talks to us, and with what I'm sure a lot of people would have seen so far on the Whistleblowers documentary from Rugby Pass TV, that, we're human. We get things wrong. We don't go out there to fail or ruin a game, but there are things that we're not perfect, right? There's a human element to our performance. And so I've gotten more and more comfortable with being able to say that and say, hey, that wasn't the best decision, or yeah, I wish I would have changed. I wish I could go back and change that maybe, but as well being a bit forward facing in terms of what can I do differently to not miss that decision the next time, or to have a little bit more clarity as well with myself.
Okay.
Yeah, and then this year the competition format's changed a bit, and the men and women completely overlap. Do you find that helps build a better team as referees, or do you find it's about the same?
I think it actually has. I think I've only had 2 tournaments this season, so I was in Dubai. I wasn't there in Cape Town, but as you can see in these photos, I was there in Perth. For those that don't understand or that don't know exactly what Tom's talking about, in case you don't watch a whole lot of the sevens. So originally, the women's comp, I think historically always had 12 teams, so it's always been 3 pools of 4. The men have had 16 teams up until this year, so they've had 4 pools of 4. The qualification into knockouts has been different, where the men would just have the top 2 of each pool go through into the quarterfinals for the cup, and the bottom 2 go into the bowls. The women's comp has always had, and the men's comp has changed to this too, where it's the top 2 teams from each pool, and then the next best third place, the 2 next best third place teams. And so then that means that actually a whole lot of stuff from not just points scored on the board, but also tries scored, points differential makes a real big difference within the pool to move forward into the cup qualification stages. It has also meant that historically there's been more men's referees than women's referees or women competition referees, as we've been, because if you only have 12 teams, you need 6 referees. If you have 16 teams, you need maybe closer to 7 to 8, because we try and have maybe half the number of teams that there are, obviously. And so I think it has been cool in the sense of we get to share more time at the facility as well. In the past, and this is a lot of like logistical stuff, but I hope it's kind of like pointing out some of the lived relationship. But before, it would be the men would have a really long session, and then either us as the women's comp reps, we would either go and do our own stuff, or maybe we would go back to the hotel if we were able to. And so there was a little bit still of that division on match day, which there already is quite a little bit of, just because you kind of get stuck into your own performance. And now, because I think what was really cool about Perth was day 1 on Friday, it was and finals day as well. Actually, it was sort of zipper style, like a men's game, a women's game. Or I think day 1 was 2 men's matches, 2 women's matches, 2 men's matches, and then it was the same for finals, where it was like the men's 11th place playoff, the women's 11th place playoff, the 9th, so on and so forth. And so, I think it's actually built a more cohesive referee team across the gendered competitions, which I think helps our enjoyment in terms of both the pressure that we get put under, but as well being able to talk to a larger swath of referees for advice, whether it's like, hey, what do you think about this clip? Because we're always reviewing our games directly after. As well as just kind of, hey, are you free? Do you want to jump in the ice bath? Do you want to get some food? Do you want to grab? They usually have some coffee for us as well. Genuinely, having that logistical change a little bit from the past years, I think really has helped us to get around each other a little bit more and have a bit more positive relationships with one another, which is the special thing of being a part of a referee team internationally is, as you can see, Jazz Joyce is scoring this try for GB. They train together. They kind of live together. They travel together. We as the referees, we start to see each other the week of. And so it takes a lot more intentional time and a lot more of the moments that we have in the comp where we really grow and build our network and our trust with one another, which really benefits our performance on the field. So,
Cisco, how far did you get in this one? I can't remember in terms of semifinals. I know you didn't.
I was able to do a cup quarterfinal. Yeah, I was able to do a cup quarterfinal, which I was really happy to do. I had a couple of things that I was working on from Dubai. And so it was good to see the level go up a bit. Of course, like every other ref, we want to be a part of all of the important games. And that's not to say that not every game is important, but that, we like being a part of the ones where it's like, oh, this is for first. The same way that the teams would be, right? Like every game is important for these teams, even if they're playing for 11th or if they're playing for first. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be involved as a referee in the middle past the quarterfinals. I did have
the final, right?
Yeah, I was able to assistant referee in the final, which is always a special moment. I got to help one of my really good friends, Craig, and then it was also Finley Brown, who I'm really close with as well. So that was a real special moment in terms too of the fact that we were in Perth for the first time. So
when they make these assignments, are you guys all in the same room and the chief boss says, okay, how are those moments? I can envision like a couple of guys just storming out, fuck that.
No,
getting
never.
out angry, That doesn't happen.
Fair, I think, because I think to be fair, I think What I will say on that point is, like, I think to be selected for the sevens, I think it takes being a really good referee, but I think it also takes being a really good team player and having that understanding of, like, only a few referees are going to be, only 4 refs are getting in the quarters, 2 refs are getting in the semi, and 1 ref is going to get the final. That means the opposite of that number from how many refs that we have are not involved. And so I think we all want, again, like I'm saying, we all want to be involved in those, but I think we all know that can't always be the case. And I think a lot of us are also honest with ourselves. Like, after I did my quarterfinal and I did my review, I kind of figured, like, not the worst performance, but not as good as I think I could be. And I think we always get measured against ourselves. So, that's not maybe my best performance. This hasn't been my best tournament so far. That might be the end of me being in the middle for the real pointy end of the comp. And so now it's time to refocus and do the job the next one, whether it's ARing, whether it's refereeing a couple of other matches. But yeah, we do have a meeting. It's always, we get in our WhatsApp group that we have for the weekend. Hey, team meeting after whoever's game, 5 minutes after. And, we all get in. Management who have been up in the box doing TMO and performance review from pretty much like the angles that you're seeing here. They're sort of next to the production team, the commentating team. So they'll come down and they'll close the door and it'll be a real nice silence. And then they'll ask, they'll just say, like, okay, here are the assignments moving forward. Congrats to everybody.
Who wants to ref the final? Who wants to ref the final?
And they'll genuinely say, like, it also is as well, like, a real big moment that I think they start with, hey, we're going really well as a team. There are no big trends for us to work on, or they'll tell us if there are trends, like, hey, make sure that we're, whether it's watching for foul play, whether it's space at set piece and stuff like that, they'll let us know, hey, on this next round, we haven't been as good as we should have on these things, so let's all work on this. And then if not, then they say, okay, these are the assignments, and they'll kind of just start in chronological order usually. So they'll be like, oh, okay, quarterfinal 1 is quarterfinal 2, quarterfinal 3, and then we'll do those meetings every single time, because we'll know the quarterfinals, and after the quarterfinals, then we move on to the semis, and then the semis will happen, and then we'll move on into the final. And those announcements all get put as well with, whoever's doing first, that's in the same announcement as whoever's doing the 3-4 game, whoever's doing the 5th place match, the 7th place match and stuff. And that still is separate though from the gendered competition, because the timings are kind of different, and we have separate management groups oftentimes in each competition. So to be fair to Tom's question, like, that event is very much our smaller team within the larger group of the refs, of all the refs for the women's comp and the refs for the men's comps. So yeah, and then I think we all get around each other afterwards too, tell each other good job, or if somebody needs a little bit of like a word to the side, like, I've pulled friends have pulled me to be like, hey, is everything okay? Do you want to chat about whatever? And again, that's the human element of the refereeing that I think is so good to see within the sevens group that we've been able to build from the past 3 years. And then again, kind of dovetailing some of the stuff about the documentary that I hope people get to see in Whistleblowers, that, we're not robots that go out and want to crush a game and sort of like, be the sort of absolute dictatorial authoritarian, I have the power kind of thing. And instead sort of like, I want to serve the game well. Have I done that? Haven't I done that? And that we get around each other too. And it's like, oof, yeah, that was probably a tough one. Let's have a human conversation about that.
I just want to make a little announcement update. We've just been cut off from YouTube. And I think it's because I was showing, I don't know how these guys do this, but it's really outrageous. I mean, because I was showing these clips, the stream has been cut off from YouTube. We're still on Facebook, on Twitter. So, and I'll still repost this once we're done, and I'll maybe edit that thing out. Man, it's like crazy.
Yeah, this is look, it's back now behind you.
Our guest here is probably going to have to. She probably knows something about this. How crazy this not being able to show anything, because it's all a copyright infringement, man. Then it's like rugby's going to disappear. So listen, let's bring out our next guest here, because
I'm fascinated to hear from Alex.
Yeah. Okay. So Alex White, welcome. Thank you very much from Cape Town, South Africa. It's a pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. No, I'm super excited to be here.
So what just
so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Why
I
don't
think
you tell us a little bit about yourself, or where you're coming from?
Yeah. So I'm coming from Cape Town. I am South African. I know I might not necessarily sound like what people expect South Africans to sound like. I don't know what you think we sound like in Florida, but this might not be it. But I've grown up in South Africa. I sound like this.
We have
I've been involved in rugby from when I was in school, and I think where most people will know me from is from Instagram or TikTok, where I explain laws and discuss all sorts of refereeing issues. And a lot of the time, I'm there to educate, to inform. And if you've ever seen any of the content I do, it's always backed by law and guidelines, and it's trying to be as objective as possible to cut through controversy when there simply doesn't need to be. So that's what I do on social media, and I love that. I'm obsessed with refereeing, officiating, laws, all of it. I love it. So that's what I do.
We're going to go through a few clips that I have ready here. Now, I don't know, with what just happened, how has this happened to you, getting like death threats from World Rugby because you're
no,
trying to make rugby better?
I have a very positive and good relationship with World Rugby.
Oh
But
man,
I was banned from TikTok during the World Cup. Kind of near the start of the World Cup, which wasn't great for my TikTok analytics and things. And then I appealed it because I said, no, under fair use, I can use the footage, I can comment, I can discuss. And then TikTok was like, yes. So I got unbanned. But during that process of trying to get unbanned, I tried to go through World Rugby. And then I actually got some great contacts out of that to talk about laws, and so I can get answers to questions I have, because often people ask me things and then I have no idea. So I need some sort of higher power to appeal to. So I got a positive result out of that. On Instagram, I've been fine, but yeah, on TikTok I was banned for a bit during the World Cup, which is when my content was really going.
Maybe one of your contacts is watching this because they put it back on, so it's live again on YouTube.
Oh, that's good.
Probably following you. Okay. So, of course, one thing is what I found fascinating about your content, which I discovered at the World Cup, is like, and it's like sort of mind blowing how. And let's put one of your clips here on. I'm going to put this one, which was like really heartbreaking when this happened. But then when you break it up, you see that the referee was correct, right?
Yes.
And of course, people watching it from the stands, they just want their team not to be penalized. That's all.
Exactly.
And
the difficult thing is that this is like at the end of a game. It's Fiji who is. It's difficult to call them an underdog anymore, because both times that they've been World Cups in France, they've made it to the quarterfinals. But the thing is, it's like England, this tier 1 team, Fiji just there in tier 1, and we don't see them play a lot of test rugby. So it's super exciting when we get to a World Cup and they're playing. And so there's the emotion there. Everyone's feeling very passionate at the end of that match. And things like this, fans will watch this, and this is a problem with rugby sometimes, is that it is so complicated that something like this will become controversial when it's really not that controversial. No one there's on their feet. He goes for the ball, he steals the ball. It's quite simple. He's the only one on his feet. He can play that ball. His player's not in the way. It's all sorted, and I explain it in the video. But after the match, I mean, Mathieu Reynal on social media was getting so much abuse, and a lot of it was because of this decision, which was completely fine. And he tried to explain it afterwards, and the Fijian captain wasn't having it, but also like, you've just been knocked out of the World Cup. Emotions are high. It's probably not the best time to be trying to explain things. But that's one of the reasons I do it, is because a lot of the time, things that are controversial in the media, people just get on it on social media. It shouldn't actually be controversial. It's not as big a deal as everyone makes it out to be. And obviously there's interpretation, and there's gray areas in rugby, but I try and make sure that I'm helping people understand when it's black and white, it's black and white. Like, let's get rid of that stuff so we can debate the stuff that actually needs to be debated, and not the irrelevant stuff that is simple. And so it's things like that.
I really wonder, and maybe Cisco or even you, Alex, can tell me this. How do you process this in real time on the field? Because when we're watching it, and you can go back to the law book, and find the 19.7, that's great. But how you do this on the field? Well, how does the mind of a referee work?
I think Cisco should answer that. It's a bit different doing sevens at the highest level than club rugby here in the Western Cape.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've refereed some of the stuff out in Stellenbosch that was not, I think, by its own high level. That felt very high level though. That gets crazy. It's a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing is obviously, and I think you would have seen some of the promotional stuff with Angus Gardner for whistleblowers. Like, so much of it is preparation, right? So it's not, I think when you're a really early referee, it's almost just knowing what is actually in law and what are the proper sequences of what you go about. And then when you get to a higher level, then it's about familiarizing yourself with your pictures. And almost to the point that Alex has just said about this one clip in particular, it's almost about simplifying it to what is the most sensible decision here? What's the most easiest to follow decision in terms of what's the obvious thing here is the fact that, like, oh, nobody's on their feet, and then the one player on their feet is tugging at the ball. So what is that? But there's only one decision that comes out of that, right? And so much of it, I think, is then in prep, making sure that you're watching enough rugby, making sure that you have your plan around how you're going to referee the breakdown. In the sevens, we come in the week before the competition. So if the competition starts on Friday, we're in on the Monday. And, we have a running session on Tuesday, and in the afternoon, we have a technical video session, usually led by either Craig Joubert or Paddy O'Brien, the referee manager. And it's exactly that. It's us going through the key focus areas, which are simple things, but still things that we want to have the right pictures on, that we want to have consistency across the referee group, around tacklers rolling, around tackle assists showing clear release, arriving players entering through the gate on their feet. So in one sense, it's all of these simple things around, right, what's the tackle sequence? You can't start refereeing the arriving players until you've refereed the tackled player or the tacklers. And then having clear pictures too around, well, what are our thresholds around penalties only, yellow cards, red cards for high tackles, making sure the head contact protocol, all these other things. So it's a lot of prep and almost refreshing. And a lot of things can become instinctual, I think, in a way. But if we don't have that intentional preparation beforehand, we can get caught out with a lot of really weird situations, or situations to the point that Alex is making about this one clip too, where everything around this one decision, it's not just about the decision itself of, Fiji can feel hard done by in this situation, but it's the fact that, they already feel hard done by being the underdog throughout the whole World Cup, almost to Alex's point as well, almost outside of the question in the sense of, like, they're the underdog, more the fact that they're not the higher tier one team here. And so they can already feel this sort of like, maybe we're not being reffed accurately enough or fairly enough because we're the underdog, or where people are watching us more because we're the underdog. So that then all of that, and then it's a knockout game, and then all of that emotion gets swept up into one decision. Those kinds of situations are outside of your control as a referee. And those are the things that we know that we put our name in the hat, I guess, in a sense, to, like, who's going to be in the pressure cooker this weekend? Who's going to have that? And so having all the prep, having all of the clarity going into a match really prepares you too for then, this might be controversial for a lot of very personal, a lot of emotional, very reasonable reasons. But it's not controversial to referee. Right, it's not a controversial referee decision. It is a controversial moment in the sense that there's a lot of things that get swept up. And so having all of your prep done helps to really keep your mind clear for, again, what's that simple decision? What's the decision that if you would have seen any other time in the game, if you would have seen in a similar picture throughout the competition, if it was a different teams and stuff like that, you would still call the same exact call. And again, going back to what Alex was saying about black and white versus, there are things that we can debate. This is maybe not one of them.
I think also
the other thing that
on that, how well you described that at the start with, when people start refereeing, you have to just know your laws, because people can get really flustered when you see something happen at a ruck and you just think, I have no idea if that's okay or not. So it's a case of learning all the laws and then knowing when to apply them and when not to, which you can only really know when you really are aware of what's going on and you know the laws and you've had that match time and experience to know what to do and when to do it. So for people just starting out, I know how complicated it can be, but it's definitely a rewarding process.
I just saw a quote today. I don't know if it was Barnes, but he said it's more important for a referee when not to blow the whistle than when to blow the whistle.
That's
'Cause
like
if you were
refereeing
blowing,
law. That's an age-old quote. That's a very popular one. Yeah.
Yeah, and genuinely in my reviews, especially on the sevens, but even when I referee for MLR or other 15s competitions, I think the decisions that I get the most frustrated with myself with are the ones where I actually don't need to blow my whistle. And maybe there's a technical infringement, or maybe somebody looks a bit dodgy, but like, ball's at the back and we can keep playing footy. Like, what's the point in intervening when the players can be expressing themselves and can be dictating the pace and the tone of the match?
let's go and see another clip. But before that, I want to give a little shout out to my fan number one, my daughter Valentina. She's all in the gear and watching very well. She seems to be sleeping there, but she does watch it 2 times every single time. Thank you, Valentina. I love you.
Awesome.
So let's see one another. Let's go. This was another one. No, I'm not sure if it's this one. There were quite a few really.
Yeah, I made so many clips during the World Cup. I can't even remember this.
Yeah. So is this one the one where it's like the one of the players is pulling in a player who hasn't rolled?
Oh,
okay. So it's something that's.
No. This is.
Let me see.
This is from the Never Blown, which was very interesting because this we see all the time of things going on that
yes,
you would think,
I remember this. I remember this. So actually, there was a great example in our URC, which is the tournament with both of these laws. Actually, F and G here. I can talk to both of these. There was a great example in the URC. That's South Africa, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and Italy. Our club teams. And I think it was Munster was playing somebody. I can't remember, but basically the Munster 9 dummied it out the back of the ruck. So he didn't actually lift the ball, but he made as if he was going to. And then the other team came offside because they advanced when they saw that happen. And that's something that, like, I don't see that too often, but when it does happen, you can feel it's a bit unfair if that team then gets blown up for being offside because they advanced because the Nines pretended to lift that ball, make it look like it's out. So that was G on that list of laws there, which I've never seen blown. I mean, I think there are only 3 things that can be blown up with a free kick at a ruck, and that's one of them. And then the F when they're returning the ball to the ruck, I have seen that once as well, where actually I think it was Andrew Brace in some test match. He gave England a penalty for the other team being offside. I don't know who they were playing. Again, the other team was offside. But what he didn't see is that the 9 had lifted the ball and then put it back into the ruck. So he thought it wasn't out yet, but it had literally been lifted out the ruck and put back in, which is also a free kick. So those little weird ones, which like you never see, but are there to prevent basically negative play, because both of those are negative play. You're trying to draw the other team offside, win a penalty. So those are interesting ones to know. How often you'll need to enforce them, I don't know if Cisco's ever even needed to use them. Also, sometimes you don't need to blow that. If the team hasn't fully come offside, you say, go back, don't do that again, and then we play on. That also can happen.
Yeah, which is I think the fascinating thing too about, and even again for anybody who's watching this thinking about becoming a referee or people who are early referees, like I feel like our number one tool that we have as referees in rugby that a lot of other officials in other sports, especially in the US, don't have, is that ability to like manage a situation where, we can certainly blow this up for a free kick and probably a team is going to restart with a scrum or something like this. But if nothing sort of like too wrong has happened, then you can sort of say like, all right, you get back, use it now. Okay. And then at the next one, hey, I have had that in MLR. We have a couple of scrum halves who, we form a long caterpillar type ruck. They sort of roll the ball to the back, and obviously everybody's waiting for the box kick, so they're waiting for any movement so that they can at least put pressure, if not actually put pressure, or even at least get a finger to change the flight direction, or at best get a good charge. So a lot of the scrum halves will just like move their shoulders, and you usually let them get the first one, and then the next time as they start rolling it back, you tell them no dummying, just kick. and then they'll sort of
Hey
know,
man,
like, okay, I can't really get away with
if
it.
I'm not wrong, back in the 70s when I used to play, we could dummy all the time. You know, just
the
pretend
70s. Well, the 70s. I don't even want to know
Charlie,
the number
you
of
just
law
cheated.
changes. The number
It
of
was the
law
Wild
changes
West
we've
of
had
rugby.
since, like 2011. I don't even want to know. It's crazy. But I think that's to maybe the point that we want to think about in terms of like, because what I find so fascinating about your content, Alex, is like how dedicated you are to looking at the law book and showing people what is there in law, while also still having a little bit of this balance in terms of refereeing decisions as well. Like exactly that. Like, if you don't have to blow up the free kick, you can kind of like manage the situation. But what I was going to say was that the so many of the law changes that we've gotten have been exactly that, to kind of both help to stop negative play and to help sort of a little bit more of like a fair contest. Because I'm sure back in the day, Charlie, no one thought about creating a law to keep you from dummying, because there was probably either not enough people doing it, or everybody almost had this like mafia agreement of like, well, I'll just dummy the ball, why not? And somebody else, like a referee, had to come in and be like, no, this is too crazy. Let's no more dummying. Get the back to the ruck, please.
Yeah. I think the one place where the dummying gets blown up when it happens almost always is if you're throwing into a line out. I see that does get blown up. So it's again that interesting thing. I think what I'm so passionate about is trying to understand and know the law book completely inside out, and then only using it when it's absolutely necessary, if that makes sense. Like you're saying, is to be able to manage the game. If something is technically wrong, but it hasn't actually impacted the match, and we can just play on. People want ball in play. But then also when these weird scenarios happen, to be confident that you know what to do and that your decision's right.
Let's talk about the scrum
and that's exactly and to say, well, just to dovetail what Alex is saying, like in our technical sessions that we have with Craig Joubert, like he is the one that he is very, like in a very similar way, is like, you know, you guys should know the law. I remember we had like a quiz that we had done one time, and you know, one of them was what are the 5 different ways that a player can be put back on side at a ruck, and then what are the 7 ways that a player can be put back on side in open play. And so there's like 2. There's 2 in open play which are not which can't be used at the ruck. And so on the one hand, he's like, listen, this is for you to know. This isn't for you to go out there and look for all these situations where someone would be onside if this was open play, but they still remain offside because it's at a ruck. This is more so that when you see it, that one random time where because one of the things that won't put you back onside if you're offside at a ruck is a pass, actually.
Yeah.
And so and so for example,
you have to run 5 meters or kick it at a ruck.
Yeah. And that's exactly. And so the thing is, if you pass, and nobody has ran 5 meters with the ball, you remain offside if you've never retired behind the last foot. And so then it's important for us to know sevens reps, because if anything, that is a situation that we get very often in sevens.
Yeah.
And though it might be technical, there might be a situation, exactly, you've just said it, where, but you need to use it because in that situation, it actually does matter. It's not technical. The offside player remains offside, always offside, putting pressure in the outside channels, forcing play to come back inside or something like this. But knowing the law then gives you that confidence, as well as the ability to sell the decision, in the sense of, no, you must retire because you're offside at a ruck, not in open play.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the scrum. Alex, you just posted on your account that there is 51 possible things you can call in a scrum. 51,
yes.
Okay?
51 between penalties, free kicks, and then one thing that is sanctioned with the scrum, which is just time wasting. But yeah.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the most obscure areas of refereeing, because from the standpoint of the viewer, you really don't know what's going on. To be honest, myself, I think you guys just make this up, you know, because I don't know.
And that's a thing that lots of people think, and you'll find literally you'll have all 6 front rowers in a scrum, and you give a penalty, and all 6 front rowers think that something different happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So what a lot of referees I've spoken to, and actually Ben O'Keefe, who's refereeing this one here in the semi-final between England and South Africa, in the final minutes for South Africa to kick the winning penalty. I spoke to him about a year ago. I interviewed him for another show, and I was asking him about the scrum, and his advice at that time. There was quite a lot of people saying he was one of the best scrum referees in the world. Is that the pictures you're looking for is that you want everybody to be obviously squared up. You want them driving straight. And when people start doing funny things, you sort it out quickly so it doesn't develop into a bit of a mess, because then it's very hard to tell what's going on. And people watching at home on TV, you often have an angle different to the referee, or one that's not showing you exactly what's happening. Like on this side, if I can't even remember which side South Africa, I think South Africa is playing right to left here, but if our tight head's doing something, you're not going to see it from here. So that's that sort of thing. And what I think World Rugby referees have got a lot better at doing is using the assistant referees to help with the far side, because that used to not be done as much. It was just the referee on his own having to watch all 16 people, which can be quite tricky. And I think like the big things about the scrum is that you're pushing straight, not going up or in or hinging or all of those things, and that the hooker actually hooks for the ball. There's the break foot now, which is the new-ish law, which still, when I do school and club rugby, there are people who have no idea what that is, so that's always a fun time. But in this example, I mean, this is probably an example of where he waited. This again shouldn't have been controversial, but he didn't blow it straight away, and he didn't play advantage straight away, which got people so excited on social media. Is that a knee goes to ground straight away, which destabilizes the whole scrum. And you can see him here. He almost raises that arm to blow it straight away, and then he's thinking, okay, let's just see what happens. It looks like it's okay, but then the scrum goes across, and he's decided, well, that initial knee to the ground destabilized it. Advantage, penalty. And then Handré Pollard kicks it over. And here he's saying it's knee to ground first. But this became so controversial because if you look at it from the top, our tight head and their tight head, I mean, they're both like driving in, and now everyone's debating about who drove in first. And then so if you go all the way back to the first infringement, it's the knee to ground. And still there are people that will say his knee went to the ground because of the South African tight head scrumming in. So like with a scrum, even on the easy ones, it's not necessarily going to be that everybody's happy. But I think this is a good example of something that became controversial, not necessarily because the decision was wrong, but because he took a few seconds to make that decision, and then people started blaming other things for what happened and thought South Africa were being rewarded for different things. So, and also in a semi-final, to basically decide who goes through to the final, it's a big call. Yeah,
absolutely.
That brings me to another point I would like to make and see what you guys think. The infringements at the scrum seem like so sort of, in many cases, so minor, so technical, so unintended. He could have slipped, so his knee went down. And now we have a penalty, 3 points, that decide a game. I'm all for just having free kicks for this because it just seems a little bit unfair. And you can see South Africa does this a lot. They sort of try to work those penalties out of the scrums when they need.
Yeah. Well, it's an attacking weapon, and some people obviously think it takes too much time, blah, blah, blah. You won't find South Africans saying that. They love a good scrum. It's like a big part of the game. Rugby has all these. One of the big parts of rugby is that everything's contestable, like the scrum. I mean, South Africa were 5 meters from their own line in that semi-final, and it was a scrum to England, and Oxencheck came on and pulverized them. We won a penalty on a defensive scrum. That's like very rare in Test rugby, 2 tier 1 teams to win a defensive scrum penalty 5 meters from your own line. And I personally think that if England had got the ball out the scrum, they probably would have scored, and South Africa wouldn't have been into the final. But when you have 16 players all pushing up against each other, a very small, like you say, technical thing can actually have quite a big impact. And the point of the scrum is to be able to attack. It can either be a platform that you attack off of, or it can be you actually drive and make meters, which we never see because someone's going to slip, infringe, etc. So on the one hand, like I think if those little technical things, there's certainly some things I think in the scrum could be free kicks that are penalties, but there are a lot of things that are free kicks as well. But as someone who's actually been in the middle a lot more, Cisco, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that what's interesting is I can certainly agree that like it might seem unfair because it's a real small technical thing. To Alex's point, like yes, once like that small knee to the ground. What's interesting too is at least from what I've seen, and both what I felt when I saw the reverse, which is the side that we see from Ben O'Keefe's perspective, is actually before the knee comes to ground too. The loose head from England actually gets quite overextended, so his legs are straight. which means that he's not necessarily in a strong position to push, which is why his leg ends up collapsing, because he needs to find a way to maintain the pressure. And so this is to say that actually scrummaging is also very simple. Like, we can simplify the way that we approach refereeing the scrum, and in a way it is very difficult. I don't want to sort of say that it's easy, but in the sense of what the job to do when you're scrumming positively is, it's actually also a very simple thing. So it's all about the setup. It's all about pushing straight. It's all about having your feet planted where you're in a legitimate position to push. And if you want to have a go, that you have a go legally, right? And so I think that if we don't recognize that this is a job that is something that the players can do and should do with like a high level, the fact that they're professionals, then we start to maybe move to a place where teams will be happy to commit a free kick infringement if it's no longer a penalty. And then we're going to start having these situations at defensive scrums where you're going to get a lot worse pictures because of the fact that the sort of threshold of intervention for the referee is much higher, I guess, in a sense, or the like, it's the same as like committing an infringement further away from the middle of the sticks when you're inside your 22 versus like right in front, right? Like, every team is more than happy to collapse a maul because, okay, well, we might get a penalty and then we'll be able to defend another maul, versus like, okay, if any jackal right in front of the goal line, like, don't go for this unless you are 100% sure if it's like, a really close game. Yeah, because then it's like, well, then we're going to lose. And so I think, and I'm thinking about this in particular too, from the perspective of us being a little bit more harsh on throws at the lineout being legal or like in the middle. And a lot of conversations have been like, but what about the conditions? What about sort of like, what about like ways that the picture can look different from the way that the jumpers are thrown across sometimes maybe. But at the end of the day, what we came to, at least in MLR, was like, well, this is a skill that hookers should have, throwing the ball down the middle. And they should be, if not, they should be rewarded for doing it well, and they should be sort of not necessarily penalized, but there should be consequences for the fact that this is a skill that some people can do well and other people can't do well. And that's sort of the fairness and competition of the game, right? So to that same extent, I think keeping things like, there's a lot of infringements at the scrum that are penalties, and I'm happy to keep at penalties, because then our job is to manage to get to a place where it's like, hey, don't make me like, you better scrummage legally. I wouldn't say exactly the sentence, but you should scrummage legally, because if not, then I'm going to have to intervene. And to Alex's point before too, all 6 of you are going to disagree with what I'm going to do anyways. So why not scrummage legally versus, now I'm going to be involved and there's going to be points in the conversation. So I'm actually kind of almost from a refereeing perspective in an interesting way, although you'd never want to give a decision that creates an opportunity for a team to win off of that one decision. You also shouldn't be afraid to make a clear and obvious decision either. And I think at the scrum, there's a lot of things that are, small and technical, but also very obvious.
And clear, yeah.
I want to play this clip mostly because it's Uruguay, and it's one of the most awesome clips you will ever see.
By Moreno. Was that a header? Hang on a second. The header going. Keep going, son. Go, Uruguay. This is going to be the best replay of all time. Follow me for more.
Oh my goodness, I love that, and I can get away with the footage there sometimes as well, because that's just me remixing a World Rugby or Rugby Pass clip. But that header,
the commentary.
Wow. I was
epic.
there. I wasn't on the field. I was in Sydney. We were in the feed room watching the games, because I'll always have a live feed, and everybody in there, it didn't matter who, if they were coaching staff, players, everybody went bananas, because everyone was like, there's no way that just happened. And then on the replay, it's like, what a brilliant move to be like, and especially because I forget his name, but he is such a short player that it's almost like it was the only way that he was going to be able to continue playing the ball. So for him to have the sort of like presence of mind to be like, head the ball, and then of course
it's not the presence of mind, Cisco. That's a soccer player that every Uruguayan or Argentinian has.
Yeah, I was going to say
within,
and I think
it's in the blood.
And that's exactly the thing that I think Argentina brings to the competition that Uruguay used to bring, and also brings to the Challenger Series now. Is like they've got so many tools in the toolbox of something like that. Where I mean, a player who's never played soccer would probably not think to head the ball, but they would try and catch it and be like, "Oh, if I don't get it, I don't get it." Whereas this guy's like, we're going for it, and then they score one of probably the best tries of the decade, like easily.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
I did want to bring
shout
that
out to Dustin and the Tennessee Elite. I see you. I hope you're doing well.
Okay, guys, listen, we're gonna have to sort of wrap this up in a little bit because we all have to go and get ready for that Six Nations game. I just want to do a quick quiz. Who's gonna win the Six Nations, Alex?
Who's gonna win? I think Ireland, just because France are missing some of their players, especially Dupont.
So is Ireland.
Well, yes. I don't know. It's difficult for me, but I would say Ireland. But my Super Brew, which is a South African thing where you take picks and choose who's going to win what, and that's very big during the World Cup. So I was a lot better with the laws than I was with predicting what would happen. I was much better at deciding or picking who was going to referee the knockout stages and the semis and the final than I was in which teams were going to be there. So take what I say with a pinch of salt.
Cisco?
Yeah. My heart really wants France to do well, because I think there's a way where, like, I can't even imagine how disappointed some of those players must have been after the last World Cup being, favorites at home. And I think that a lot of them would really love to do well without Dupont, because obviously he's going to be he's in the sevens camp now, and it'll be really interesting to see how he does there. But my heart says them, just because I think, like, it'd be great to have them bounce back. But I think realistically, even with some of the players that Ireland will be missing, I think the style of play that Ireland has, the really robust academy systems, and the way that their domestic teams kind of really just work so well with the style of play that they do, I think Ireland would be a really hard team to not expect to win.
Hey, I just asked you who's going to win, man. You don't have to analyze all the tournament.
No, you have to a little bit. And I will say,
shut up.
Before,
I'm going to mute you.
I did it. I'm
going to mute you. Okay, he's muted. Tom.
My heart says Italy, but my mind says
You mean
I would love that. That would be amazing.
I'm going for France. So listen, we're going to bring in somebody who has, this doesn't happen too much, so he's a brave man. He has joined, and he's a new referee, just started. He's Tom Ciampa's little boy, to put it some way. Where is he? There you are, Lance.
Whoa. Can y'all hear me?
Hi, how you doing, Lance? Welcome.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
You got the CEO microphone on, right? I can hear it. I can hear the CEO quality coming straight from the mic.
A Tom Ciampa's little boy, that hurts, man. Okay, that hurts. Also, Scotland, because I like underdogs. Scotland.
Okay. Okay. That would be nice.
Not a bad choice.
And I do want to say this
because there's so many South Africans there. I'll support that as well.
That's part of it. This illustrious group right here, this is pretty cool to watch, right? Keep it quiet. I'm on my lunch break. I don't want my boss to walk by, but listen, I had to jump in and say to have A.W. Wild himself, Cisco, and my coach all in one place. Hey, Charlie, man, you're doing God's work right now. I just want to let you know that. And then I do have a question, because Tom was schooling me yesterday on the referee kind of things. If you don't mind indulging me, when is a good time to give yellow card to kids? Because I got these 14-year-olds that's just begging for it.
You're itching for that, man. You're itching for out yellow cards.
I keep them with me. I'm a full-time ref. I keep them with me.
I keep that thing on me.
It's on me. I keep it.
So
the rule of thumb is when fans start screaming, give me your card.
But AW, man, you do good work, man. I want you to know the connection that you make between the rules and people's understanding of it. I think that's helped out a lot of people, and it's no surprise that your social media is growing. And you got a blue check mark, don't you?
Yes, that happened in the World Cup. That was very cool. But thank you.
It's well deserved. And I I do want to know, what are some of the wildest and craziest things you've heard or seen on social media as you're giving these critiques of the rules and laying out the landscape? What's some things you heard from people?
Mostly it's been very positive, and I've been so excited to see that so much of the interaction and the messages I get are from people not in traditional rugby nations, or any of the tier 1 nations. Like, there is obviously lots from there, but there's so much from outside, which I love, that rugby's growing. So yes. Not so much abuse. I mean, I've had like 1 or 2 messages that haven't been great, but like very little, because most of the time people know I'm not actually the one in the middle. And then I don't know if you guys know Christoph Ridley. He's one of the referees. He was at the World Cup. He was an assistant referee at the World Cup, and I think he's got his first Six Nations match coming up. But I've been sent clips sometimes from his matches and asked why I made certain decisions. So I've also been mistaken for Christoph Ridley, which is, I don't know how to take that. But yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's all I got. I'm just happy to be here, guys. I'm just happy.
Lance, what's your favorite? What's been your favorite moment so far coming to refereeing?
First game I ever refereed, it was
sorry, Lance, give me 1 second. Funny fact, I think Cisco started his first game on the same field you did at Western. Cisco?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it would have been.
I'm on a legendary path.
It would have been Tequesta. Yeah, it would have been Tequesta before Tequesta was
with the grass.
How do you say turf? Yeah.
It's people walking up to me after the game saying, "Good job, sir," shaking my hand. I'm a player. People don't congratulate me for hat tricks and playing well. They don't care. You know what I mean? The other team hate me more. Why would they? So that's kind of something. I get to see a different side of rugby community that I kind of I didn't know that I had to adjust to. So that's probably the main one.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good to hear, because I know that like a lot of people so really cool. We got the really cool experience in Perth. We had Andy Friend, who used to be head coach of Aussie men's sevens and former head coach of Connacht. He was looking at the way that we operate and giving us some feedback. And somebody had mentioned we had done a jersey presentation for him and given him some other gifts, and they had mentioned like, "Oh, thanks for coming to the dark side for just a week even." And it's so like, I think I kind of like that. That's a silly thing to say, like, "Oh, the dark side ref and this stuff." But it's so cool to hear that, like, what you're describing in terms of, people are coming up to you, they're thanking you, you're seeing another side of rugby. Like, I think it's so important too for us to kind of not take that joke too seriously and know that, like, oh, there's a lot of fun actually to be had. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, tough times as well. But coming to refereeing can be eye-opening for somebody like you, who's had, multiple national championships, has been a player at a high level, has been involved as a commentator. Like, you've been involved in rugby in so many different ways over the years. And in your first rugby match, as like in youth rugby, that you would have an experience like that, I think that's just so powerful and cool to hear.
Fun fact: Cisco's dad is my sensei. He's my certification. He's the one who I went to the class. Taught me all that. It's full circle around here. So on that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So I appreciate hearing that from you as well.
I was expecting Pancho to jump in for a little second, but he doesn't have the balls that Lance has, for sure.
Yeah.
He's teaching. Be careful.
He's just, I'm going to the bathroom. Kids, run around.
Okay. But there's also one more thing about refereeing that I was a winger, and I told Tom this the other day. I was a winger, fullback. Whatever's happening in the scrum, I have no idea how it becomes. How am I supposed to figure out who fell first? Or it's no way for me to know. Like, I need, whatever, man. Whatever.
Watch lots.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's all like, that's the crazy thing, is if you don't have the reps from doing it, like all of the reps that you need for refereeing is like watching it. So like literally, like we have a system called AMS where we can do like video analysis and stuff for the World Rugby refs. And one of the cool things that you can do is you can just clip certain things. So like when I'm getting ready for like a 15s match, I will literally just go to the last two games maybe that one of the teams that I'm refereeing is in, and just watch every single one of their scrums, whether they're putting it in or whether they're not putting it in, and just watch like what they do, how they move, how they look when they look strong, how they look when they're in the fight, how they look when they get beat, just to get pictures in my head, not to sort of have any preconceived notions, but to familiarize myself with the specific pictures that I need. And even when I was when I first started refereeing, man, I watched so much rugby, and I think that was what helped me so much. Was just like I would watch all 5 games or however many there was of Super Rugby when I was younger. I would watch all of that in the week. Like I used to download it off the internet as like MP4 files, and like after school, just like watch, like genuinely after school, not do homework, watch rugby instead. And just like the more you watch and watching like that, where like you're not like the winger, like getting in your head of like, okay, how is this going to work out? What are the different situations that I have to do? How am I going to get out of it? How am I going to actually be like, oh, looking at the scrum, what is this loose head trying to do? What is this one team trying to do? Totally different way of looking at the game, right?
You your daddy's child. You giving me homework. The teacher's son is giving me homework.
I'm secretly the sensei. Don't tell him. But
Alex, before we leave, what would you tell somebody that is even playing or retiring from rugby? Why should he get in and pick up a whistle and go to the middle? Why would he do that?
A couple reasons. I think it's a great way to challenge yourself, and you learn so much through refereeing that you never knew about the game. I enjoy rugby so much more now that I've started on this journey and I've been doing this, but it's a great way to challenge yourself. It's so rewarding when you're able to deal with different situations. You meet incredible people. There's an amazing community within rugby. It's a great way to stay involved. And it's also a way to see new places and, like I said, meet new people. It's just so incredibly rewarding. And obviously there are tough times, and there is a lot of abuse that can come with it as well. But I definitely think, obviously, seeing as I'm the positives outweigh all of that.
Okay. Cisco, what would you say from your position way up there, looking down to our mere mortals?
In the ivory tower.
Because not everybody's going to make it up there for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, and that's why I think too, like the biggest thing is to get enjoyment out of why you're being involved as a referee. And I think like a lot of that comes down to all the stuff that Alex has said, where I think, and again, I'm still plugging it, but I think like if you watch Whistleblowers, like you'll see that the relationships that the referees have with one another is like a real special friendship. It's something similar to how teammates must feel, but it's as well, I think, something that goes deeper because of the challenges as well, right? That Alex has also kind of pointed out. Like, it's not always good times, and the kind of trust and respect that you build with other referees is, I think, something that can be so special, so that whether or not you are getting to travel a bunch, whether or not you're getting to, the pinnacle of the sport, that you're still able to enjoy, week in, week out with your friends, with your colleagues. And even that, I think one of my biggest things that I've gotten out personally out of refereeing is that getting comfortable with that sort of like feeling of challenging yourself all the time and trying to be better and trying, like, I think the crazy thing about refs, like we are definitely insane in that I think all of us really would love to referee the perfect game, where we're either getting everything right, where we get nothing, where we're, managing everything perfectly. We never say a word, but the reality is that's never going to happen. But that's obviously a very strong metaphor for life, work, relationships. And I think it really gives you an interesting toolbox outside of those arenas to kind of understand a little bit more about who you are, about how you take challenges in stride, how you maybe struggle with certain challenges. And I think it can actually be like a very personal mechanism for growth as well, and like a very almost like selfish way, I guess.
Nice. Cisco, Tom.
Yeah, so I mean, my perspective is you can have, mild influence on the game. You can have a good game, you can have a bad game as a player, but as a referee, you can make that game better for 30, 40 players plus 200 fans. The stakes are a lot higher, but that can mean you can add more value to the game. Yeah, or you can ruin it for everybody. Like that works too. But I like to stay positive.
Lance, as a new ref, what would you say to people? Come and do this, what I'm doing, what I just started doing. And you seem to be enjoying it, by the way.
If you've been playing rugby long enough and you've seen the pictures and you've played and you've seen these scenarios over and over, being a referee allows you to kind of see it in a completely different way but still be involved with it deeply. You know, I'm a like I said, I'm a winger. I've never been so close to the action so much in a game. You know what I mean? Like never. You know, and just being able to not necessarily have an impact on the game, but you know, put my stamp on the game without actually physically holding the ball and running around is so new to me, and I'm just blessed to be able to. I realize I kind of walked into something I enjoy a lot. So, you know, maybe on the youth level, I'm not gonna do the men's club and stuff, but let for the kids, you know what I mean? Y'all got a referee for a while. So
great. So thank you everybody for coming, especially Alex White. It's been really fun. We should do it again sometime. I to be honest, having referees on the podcast is one of my favorite, I would say. We had them several times because it's like so no bullshit, I would put it that way. You know, you guys are the real deal and what make this game possible week in, week out. So thank you to all. Tom, I think, had to leave. He had a meeting at 2:00, so he had to take off. Thanks, Tom. Thank you again, Alex. Cisco, don't screw me up again. Next time we arrange a live thing.
Well, it'll be easier.
I was
going to say, it'll be easier in Vancouver.
It was tough because it was, you know, it was tough because we had a 12-hour time zone thing. But Lance, thank you very much for jumping in. Pancho Lopez, if you're listening, screw you, you coward. And we'll see you guys soon. Thank you very much.